Bible to the book of Matthew. マタイによる福音書. Matthew chapter 25. Matthew chapter 25. We're going to start with verse 14. 14. 25章14節から。As you're turning there, Matthew is the first book of the New Testament. My life theme or life passage or life verse comes from today's passage. When I was in college, I worked at a church, and the pastor said, "Kris, what is your purpose? What is the reason that you do what you do? Why are you working in church? Why do you want to become a pastor or a youth pastor? Why do you lead worship and music? Why do you teach the Bible?" You have to be able to answer that with passion and conviction if you're going to do the work of God. And so I asked that question, and I think this is the verse or passage that came to me as I was trying to find myself or discover what it is, who I am, and what I wanted to do with my life. And I believe that this passage speaks to all of us in answering the question of what is God's will for my life? Why am I here? And what purpose has God made me for? And so I'm privileged to share with you my life verse today. I'm going to start with Matthew 25, verse 14. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. Verse 16. The man who had received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with 2 talents gained 2 more. 18. But the man who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. Verse 19. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received the 5 talents brought the other 5. "Master," he said, "you've entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more." His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." Verse 22, the man with the 2 talents also came. "Master," he said, "you entrusted me with 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more." His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." Verse 24. Then the man who had received the 1 talent came. "Master," he said, "I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here's what belongs to you." His master replied, "You wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would not have received it back, or I would have received it back with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have in abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Many of you may already be familiar with this passage, and for that, I'm grateful. This passage, or this story, is known as a parable. Parable. Tasoe banashi, is that right? Parable? Tasoe banashi. And as I explain the story, I'd like to teach you how to read a parable. Because when you read Jesus' words, a lot of what he says are in these stories that are called parables. And there is a certain way that he tells them, and so there should be a certain way that you read a parable. For example, if you read a letter, it says it's very direct and straight towards you. And you read it like a letter. That's how you read the epistles of Paul, Romans, Corinthians, Ephesians, Galatians, Philippians. But when you read the Gospels, you have to read it a different way. And in these parables, you'll find a certain kind of system or pattern. Parables are very similar to jokes, okay? Jokes. For example, I'm not going to tell a joke, okay? But when you have a joke, there's the build-up or the situation. Then there's the problem. And then at the end, there's the punchline, the line or the saying that's supposed to make you laugh. All right. For example, a Buddhist, a Christian, and a Catholic were walking down the street. Right. That's the setup, the situation. Okay. And then from there you have the conflict and the punchline. I don't have a joke to tell you, so don't wait for anything. Okay. So Jesus is telling these parables, and he has the situation. There's a master, and he has 3 servants. Okay? And the master is going to go on a journey. And before he goes on his journey, he gives his 3 servants things that belong to him. To one, he gave 5 talents. Talent, if you look in the notes of your Bible, there's quite a bit of money. It's about at least 3 months' salary. Okay, so that's a lot of money. If you've been given 5 talents, you've been given quite a sum of money. And so he gave one 5 talents, and he gave another 2 talents, and he gave another 1 talent. And the key word when he's giving those talents is that he gave each according to his ability. He gave each according to his ability. God gave them what they were able to use and that they knew how to use. Today, I'm going to be talking about the talent that God has given to each of us. The talent. Now, of course, the very simple definition of a talent is a skill or an ability. Some people say, I have a talent for guitar. I don't think so, but some people say that. Or ability to sing, or ability to use computers, or ability to teach, an ability to organize. Okay? And that's the basic meaning of the word talent, something that you have been given. And some of you understand that, yes, I have this skill, I have this ability, and yeah, I feel God gave it to me. I feel like this skill is something God gave me, and that's the right attitude to have toward your skill, whatever it is. But there's also another meaning of talent that I believe God is showing us, and that is that anything God has given to you, anything that you have materially, financially, or even in your family, given to you by God, is a talent that God gave to you, according to your ability. If you have money, God has given it to you according to your ability. God will not give you more money than you are able to use. That's my situation. God has never given me more money than I will ever be able to use. Okay? I don't think he ever will, because he's so wise. So, if you have children, God has given you children, each according to what you are able to handle. And those are the things that God has given you. If God has given you possessions, a house or a job or students or influence, those things were given to you by God. Do not doubt that what you have is not your own, but it is from God, each according to our own ability. So some of us wonder, God, why can't I get these things? Why don't I have more of this? When are you going to give me more, God? And God is saying, you're not ready yet. I have given you exactly what you are able to handle and nothing more. And when you are ready to get more, trust me, I'm wise. I know how to give. And that's the wisdom of God. He gave each according to his ability. Now the master went off on a journey. Now, in the mind of the people who heard this at first, that's kind of a setup in a joke. When somebody goes away, eventually they're going to come back. And I'll get to this point later, but I want to mention that you should be thinking in this parable that Jesus is making it very clear that he will return. That there is a time when he will come back from his journey. If you read the book of Matthew, and you notice in chapter 25 where this text is coming from, there's 3 parables that he gives. And each parable is talking about a time when somebody will come back and return. If it's the husband, the groom, or the master, or the Lord himself, somebody is coming back. And Jesus is making it very clear when he tells these stories, I am coming back. And everything that you do in your life as you live must be in light of that, preparing, getting ready for when he comes. Christians, if you are a Christian here and you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, you believe that he is not dead, he is alive, and that he will come. He will come according to the Scriptures again. So he went off on a journey. When he comes back, you know the story. He comes to the first servant and says, I gave you my money. 5 talents. What do you have? The servant says, Master, you gave me 5. Here's 5 more. 10 talents. The master says, well done. Good and faithful servant. Good and faithful servant. That's great. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many. Come and share in your master's happiness. Good and faithful. When I think about my life, is it good? I don't know. But at least I want to be faithful. I think I can do that. I want to be faithful. What is faithful? Faithful. What is faithful? Well, what did the servant do? He took what was given to him and he multiplied it. He increased it. And for that, he was called faithful. Same thing with the second servant. What was given to him, he doubled it. He was called faithful. What is faithful. In this case, it means to increase what you have been given. Not just keep what you have, but it means to increase. That means faithful in this parable. When I think about the things that God has given to me, He's given me knowledge of His Word. I went to Bible school. I received great teaching. That was given to me by God. If I want to be faithful with my knowledge, that means I have to be able to multiply that knowledge and teach others that which God has taught me. If God has given me an ability with this guitar, to be faithful with that talent is to be able to let somebody else develop their talent and their skill with the guitar, to reproduce myself. If God has given you children, to be faithful with your children means to raise them up and to give them the life that God has given you. Opportunities, chances, faith, fear of God. That is to be faithful with your children, to reproduce in them what God has put in you. If God has given you a belief in Him, that is maybe one talent He's given you. Your job, then, is to reproduce that faith in somebody else. And then when you can say, when Jesus comes back and you stand before Him and He says, I've given you faith. What have you done with it? You can say, Lord, you gave me faith. You gave me belief. Here's my friend. Here's my friend. And He'll say, yes, you've been faithful. You've multiplied what I've given to you. And that's the meaning of faithful in this parable. And then comes the conflict. The third guy, right? The one with the one parable who had one talent. And he was afraid, reasonable. The master in this parable, in this story, was not a Christian. He wasn't a God-fearing man. The master in this parable was just a businessman. That's it. He wasn't in it for the fear of God or to do holy things. He was in it for money. When I was in college, I took a job as a waiter in an Italian restaurant, which was called Mario's, ironically. But this was not the same Mario's that we have a million of in Hiroshima. This was Mario's in California. And this Mario's was great. This was my first job as a waiter. And the manager, when he was training me, he said, okay, Kris, after work I want you to stay a little bit late. I'm going to show you some good things. You see, Mario's, the one I worked at, had specialized in wine, Italian wine. So we had over 40 kinds of Italian wine downstairs in our cellar. And if I was going to be a waiter at this restaurant, I had to know the wine at this restaurant. So after work, he sat me down. He said, okay, Kris. And he took down about 5 bottles. Boom, 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 boom. Opened all of them up. Had some bread, put some butter on it. He said, hey, Kris, taste this wine. Notice it's kind of spicy. It smells like apples. You know, it's very strong. And I was just thinking, ugh, good wine. You know. And he says, okay, eat some bread, wash your mouth, try this wine. Notice, this is kind of a white wine. It's a Chardonnay, and you know, it's kind of fruity. It's not good with spicy sausage. You want to eat this with some like fish, clams. Okay, it's good with a white sauce because it's a white wine. And and 40 wine. Okay. So I'm like, right. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be hard. And he says, Kris, listen. You're going to love this job. You're going to go to the customer and you're going to say, hey, how are you doing today? Oh, you're going to have the spaghetti and sausage? Great. I recommend this wine. It's going to go great. It's got kind of spiciness. It brings out the flavor in the sauce, blah, 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 and it's going to be wonderful. And what you'll do, Kris, listen, Kris, what you'll do is you won't recommend the cheap wine. You're going to recommend the expensive wine, right? Because, Kris, you're going to have a great time. You're going to have personality. You're going to have pizzazz. The customers are going to love you. They're going to tip you big. But I don't care about your tip. I care about what I'm going to get. Because I'm here not for you to enjoy, but I'm here for the money. Because, Kris, I'm your friend, I'm your manager, but I am a businessman. And I'm here to make money. He was clear about that, right? He said, you are here to make me money. And so I did. I come up and, hey, what are you doing? My name's Kris, and, here's some wine for you. And that was my job, was to make money. And that was the image of this master. He was there to make money. Money. Well, God is not in the business of money. God is in the business of your life and of faith and doing a good work here. And God has given us talents, skills, and abilities in order for him to do his work here. And us being a faithful servant means, God, you've given me these things in life, not just to enjoy life, not just to have a happy life, but to live a faithful life. God, here's what you've given me, and here's what I'm going to give in return out of this life that I've lived. Now, the one servant didn't do that. He hid it because he was afraid of his master. And that's a reasonable thing. You ought to be afraid of your master. You should be afraid of the power of God because he has every right to crush you, to eliminate you, to throw you out. It's his right. It's his duty if you have been unfaithful. And that's a healthy fear. But going beyond fear is that love of God, that love of Christ that compels us to do his work. So as I think about my purpose here, what am I doing here in Hiroshima? Why am I a teacher? Why do I work at this church? It is simply to multiply and try to be faithful to God as much as I can with what he's given to me. Now, I believe God has given you, so many things. And maybe you think to yourself, no, I don't have anything. I have so little. That's okay. God only gave one talent to one. He still expects as much from that one as he had expected from the one he gave 5. If you believe in Christ, if you are a new believer, if you have been baptized within this year or within the past year, a couple of years, maybe your faith is small. You feel you have been given just a little thing. That is okay. Take what you've been given and do your best to multiply it, whether it's your family, your job, or even here at church or in the people that you work with. If you've been given faith, do what you can to increase that faith. If it's studying his word, praying with believers, and having fellowship, or just being faithful in worship, do what you can to increase that faith. If you've been given friends, and you are a type of person who knows how to communicate and have relations with people, and people like to be with you, that is your talent that God has given you to spread his faith to those around you. If you've been given money or physical, material things, God does not want you to keep it, of course, but he wants you to get more. Not to enjoy, but to use for his purpose, to be faithful. Amen? That's my purpose here. And I hope that as you consider your purpose in life, and you consider, why am I here, what am I doing, you would keep it in light of this parable. That God has not just put you here to enjoy life or just, get up in the morning and go to work, but really to do some things for his kingdom. I believe Jesus is coming soon. I really believe it with all my heart. And that's the context of this whole thing. Now, maybe we feel sometimes, oh God, I've been so unfaithful. I've been so wicked and lazy, like the third guy, this past week, this past month. God, if you were to come back today, I would not be ready. But God is here in this place, and I believe he gives you chance, second chance, third chance. I believe he's saying it's okay from now, from this time. You can go, and I will be with you to be a faithful servant. So I hope that that's our prayer as we leave from this place, that we come with the spirit of, okay, God, I want to be faithful to you. Would you pray with me? As you pray,